In today's video, we're going to be diving into some new tropical activity that we need to track as of this morning, and also some huge cooldowns that I see in the upcoming pattern that we need to talk about. Also some snowfall, really interesting stuff. Let's just get straight into these current conditions, and as you can see, we do have some storminess across a lot of the western United States. By the way, guys, this is the first video that I haven't pre-made in like 7 days because I went on a little bit of a trip. I haven't gone on a big trip really since I started doing YouTube, but I finally did, and it kind of worked out. Those videos seem to do well. You guys seem to enjoy them, and I pre-made every single one. So we did miss a lot of the events that happened in between last Sunday and today, but here we are. We're back on our normal track here, and I'm going to be back for a while. Now we see that there's plenty of storminess, like I mentioned, in the western United States, Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, down through Arizona as well. We see that for a lot of the Gulf states and the eastern states here, we have a lot of activity offshore. We can see that there is a lot of activity happening in the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley as well in here. So we see plenty of storminess, yellows and greens showing up. So this is a little bit of some heavier activity. Also, the activity out west seems pretty heavy. Let's just zoom in to some of these areas. We'll start out in the northwest here. This is an area for a few months that we haven't really had to talk about, but we're starting to talk about them again here. We can see this is moving northward through northern California into Oregon and Washington there. And that's bringing moderate to even heavy rainfall for certain spots. Very interesting stuff. And then we can see from northern California, southern California, southern Nevada, and a lot of Arizona there, we do have some thunderstorm and showery activity, including Las Vegas seeing some rainfall. Very rare event there. We'll just zoom in a little bit further to take a look at that. Actually, they've had persistent rainfall. Hopefully no flooding is happening in there, as they've had some persistent moderate to heavy rainfall for multiple hours this morning. So if you're in Las Vegas, by any chance, a lot of people don't watch me from there because there isn't a lot of weather happening out there. So, but if you happen to be in Las Vegas or from Las Vegas, let me know if there's any flooding or anything happening, because that looks pretty serious down there. Obviously, we're hoping for the best. We can see that for the what am I doing, guys? I'm a little bit rusty. As you can see here in the Great Lakes in the Ohio Valley, I wanted to say four corner states for some reason. We can see that there is a rotating storm, probably the low pressure center somewhere near Chicago there. And this is extending some storminess down around behind it in here for Michigan, even down and through New York and Pennsylvania. We see some of this activity spreading in from this. Wisconsin's being impacted, and then Iowa and Indiana as well in there. So many different regions being impacted by this low pressure system that we have somewhere near Chicago, like I mentioned. As we look at the northeastern United States, we can see some showery activity onshore of New England, but a lot of this has moved offshore over the last few hours, and this has become less and less impactful for areas over land. As we move a little bit further southward, we can see that for the interior mid-Atlantic is what I want to call it here, so mostly areas west of the Appalachian Mountain Range, we can see that these areas are dealing with some isolated showers and potentially thunderstorms at this point. And as we move a little bit further south, we can see that there is plenty of storminess happening in these regions also. Again, and something I noticed as I was down here is the mornings would be clear, and throughout the day, storms would just fire up until 5 or 6 p.m. when it was at its absolute peak, and it was widespread storminess. So could be something along those lines, a quieter morning, and then featuring a lot more storms firing up as we reach later in the day. It makes sense, obviously, as the daytime high temperatures peak. That's also when the storms potential to develop peaks, so obviously it makes sense, but these mornings were very quiet, and this one looks the same way, but there's plenty of storminess that'll probably take place there. All right, now what we're going to do is move on, and we're going to take a look at the upcoming pattern. There is some snowfall, some colder temperatures on the way, and also 2 potential tropical cyclones to track, so we have a lot to talk about. All right, now here we are taking a look at the upcoming temperature pattern. As we can see, even just today, we're going to have below normal temperatures in the eastern United States. A lot of this has to do with some storminess as well. That is around some cloudiness. That's how yesterday was for the most part. Things started to heat up after the fog and the rain really held off. Earlier in the morning and even into a bit of the afternoon, it was very, very, very nasty outside here in Virginia, at least 70s, lower 70s, and then it got up to like 85 plus in the late evening as the sun was able to peek through. It was a very strange day. I'm sure it was that way for a lot of the eastern United States yesterday. We can see that there is some heat up here in the northwest and the north central United States up here, the northern plains, dealing with some of that heat here. Now, as we approach tomorrow, we can see there's still going to be some colder temperatures overall for a lot of the eastern United States, also the western United States, with some warmth diving in for the plains in between here. As we continue onward, we can see for Wednesday the 14th here, still cooler temperatures around for the eastern United States and the western United States overall here. Continuing on, Friday we see cooler temperatures around and for the west. So really we're staying in a very, very stationary pattern. That's Thursday. Finally, by Friday, it looks like things are kind of moving here. We have warmer temperatures here around for some of the eastern United States, some cooler temperatures underneath here, and even up here for the northeast especially. And then we see the western United States, again, dealing with that storminess currently, could be dealing with more of that. That could be leaning towards more below normal temperatures in there. Let's continue this onward. That's Saturday, and that's going to be the 17th. So as we approach this weekend, we see well below normal temperatures here for a lot of the western United States. Near normal temperatures out eastward. And then for Sunday, the 18th here, we see that we're basically in a negative PNA pattern, trough in the west, ridge here for a lot of the eastern United States and central United States. So this is what we're dealing with. And then the cold temperatures are able to just dive down into the western United States there. But as we continue on, we see that heat lasts for quite a while. I would say from Sunday through at least midweek, Wednesday, Thursday timeframe. So we're going to have 3 to 5 days of warmer temperatures here in the eastern half of the nation. But watch this air mass here. This is a true Arctic blast here. It is just going to blast into the eastern United States as we approach the weekend following this. Look at that. This is by Thursday the 22nd here. Clearly a bit of a ridge growing out west, and then this big old trough in the eastern United States here. And as we continue that on, that cold sticks around for quite a while, through at least the weekend. And then we get into a horseshoe pattern of sorts where we have a ridge in the west and in the east, with this trough heading into the central United States, a big old Arctic blast here to start the week after that. And that one looks very, very potent, where we start to get a positive PNA, a strong positive PNA. And we get an elongated trough. And what I mean by that is this is covering a large amount of space here. And this is going to keep it probably further northward where it's not able to dive as far southward. There's only so much cold air to go around, and when it's this wide, it can't really stretch as far south. Whereas if it's a lot thinner than that, and let's say it's only covering the eastern half of the nation, let's say it was cut off about here where we had none of these colder temperatures and it was just this eastern half, you would likely see a much deeper trough into the southeast, but that is not the case with the trough this model is indicating here, the GFS model. And this gets us all the way to September 28th, almost the beginning of October there. This is where we're looking at. So temperatures above normal or below normal here, whether you're in the yellow or the green or the blue here. Temperatures are going to be falling dramatically between now and the beginning of October. Same story with the beginning of October towards November. So it is important to look at if we're in below normal or above normal temperatures. However, the important thing to note is that you're going to be dropping about 10 degrees a month over the next few months, and regardless, when we're looking at something, half a month out, 2 weeks out, it's going to be colder than it is right now, whether you're in the reds or the greens. That is important to note, and it's the opposite in the spring, obviously. So if you're in the blues in the spring, looking 2 weeks out, it's still going to be warmer than it is right when you're looking at it. Now let's take a look at some of that upcoming storminess. I got to move this back to the beginning. So we have some storminess that is going to trend in for a lot of these areas. Again, we have a bit of a low near Chicago, so that's one of the main things happening right now. As we continue on with this, we can see a few interesting things happening. We're going to see a nor'easter develop here on this model that heads up the coast, so that's the first thing to note here. As we continue, look at that. Develops and then heads up the coast, kind of heads offshore here though. We do see a lot of storminess overall for a lot of the northern United States and the western United States prevailing. We'll see that on the temperature pattern. As some of these troughs come through, we do get some snowy conditions, especially the final one that we see. We do start to see some snowfall begin to look possible for a lot of these regions in here. We do get a kind of Sierra Nevada snowstorm of sorts here around the 20th, so in about 8 days on this model. Take it with a grain of salt, obviously. And then we get a bit of a Rockies and Plains snowstorm at the end of this model run, which is very, very far out. So again, take it with a grain of salt, but we do see some snowfall popping up towards the end of this model run. Now, for total precipitation through the next 15 days or so, we'll be taking a look at practically no precipitation there in the whites. Your grays will be about 1/10 of an inch or less of precipitation. Your greens will be 1/10 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. Your blues will be 1/2 inch to an inch. Your yellows will be 1 inch to 2 inches. Your reds will be 2 to 5 inches. And then your browns will be 5 to 10 inches of precipitation. We see some of that there for the coast of Texas, some of that around also for Florida. But overall, we're seeing receding amounts of precipitation, which is another very, very normal occurrence for this time of year. Keep that in mind. Now, as we take a look at the total snowfall, which we're going to have to continuously take a look at probably for the next 6 months plus, we can see that there is plenty of snowfall expected for some of these mountain ranges. We see a dusting, if anything, there in the grays. We see some of that for Oregon, Washington, California, Nevada. We see probably a bit of Idaho in there, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, South Dakota even, seeing some of this pop up. Your blues will be at 2 to 6 inches of snowfall, so we're seeing some of that for multiple mountain ranges again. Your purples will be 6 to 10. We see some of that for Wyoming and Montana there. And then even the pinks showing up for Wyoming in that mountain range in north central Wyoming always gets the most early on here. That mountain range right there. And they're getting about 10 to 20 inches of snowfall over the next 15 days on the mountain peaks. Probably nobody lives there or will be there, but that is how much the mountain peaks are going to be seeing. Very, very interesting stuff. And what we're going to do is move on here and take a look at our 5-day graphical tropical weather outlook. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we do have 2 disturbances to talk about, and I think these popped up today, actually, so we weren't going to have anything to talk about, but now we do. 2 disturbances in our main development region, which is this area here offshore of Africa and around the Caribbean. We have this one up front here with a 0% chance of development over the next 48 hours, but over the next 5 days, we do have a 20% chance of development with this one. Some room to grow, obviously. This one could go either way, but we're going to track this daily. Be sure to subscribe, as always, as we will just take a look at this daily, like I mentioned. We do see this other one over here, closer to Africa, and this one is the same thing. 0% chance over the next 48 hours, but a 20% chance over the next 5 days. Again, 2 disturbances to watch. We are at the peak of hurricane season, the slowest hurricane season I've ever witnessed in my weather life, I guess you could say, since I've been paying attention. This is the slowest hurricane season I've ever seen. Normal years, you would probably think, since we're at the peak of hurricane season, at least 1 out of the 2 of these will develop into something. But this year, I wouldn't even be surprised if they both fizzled out, but obviously we know anything is possible, so these could both develop into hurricanes for all we know. These could be United States threats, or they could be total fish storms. Only time will be able to tell, so be sure to subscribe, as we will track these and everything else daily. Also, like the video if you did like the video, and leave a comment down below with your thoughts. I'll see you guys in the next video.